Hi, I'm Kelly with CitrusCyles.ca. I'm here with iZip's E3 Path Plus. It's a Shimano Steps powered step-through bike, and it's a really great value at under $3,000. If you want to check out the current pricing, the detailed specs, if you'd like to come try this bike yourself or have us bring it to you as part of our Try at Home program, head over to our website at CitrusCyles.ca. There you'll find all the details plus our contact information. So if there's anything I missed in the video or you have questions, feel free to reach out by email, by calling us, toll-free numbers on the website, or by Facebook. So let me step you through some of the features of the bike, and then I'll take you for a ride test. As you can see, as I mentioned, it's a step-through. It's got a fairly low step here, so you can actually step right over it, and it's fairly wide. And that's I like to point that out because a lot of times they'll call a bike a step-through, and in reality, this low step is too high or it's too crowded to really get your foot through there. Now, this isn't as low as some other the bikes that we carry. The Riesenmuller Swing or Nevo, for example, is even a little bit lower. But I do appreciate the fact that they have the two bars here because that helps to keep the frame really rigid. I was out on the ride test with it. I was trying to induce speed wobble, and I couldn't get that to happen because the frame is stiff enough that you're not going to have problems like that. So I think they've got a good compromise here. It's low enough to get over, but high enough to make the bike strong. It's an attractive looking bike. It is more of a city commuter style bike. As you can see, it does have a rigid frame. That helps to keep the cost and the weight down, and makes it a very efficient bike. But if you're riding a lot of really rough trails, then consider a bike with the front suspension fork instead. But the rigid fork works quite well for city riding. City riding also calls for a narrow tire like this. This is a 700 by 38C, which is a pretty common size. It is a Candid tire. It's the Quick Tendril. And again, for pavement, it works out really well. It's got some good siping here for if you're riding in the rain. And speaking of riding in the rain, we do have some fenders here on the front and a full coverage fender on the rear. I haven't heard them rattling too much, so that's nice. They are plastic fenders. And for commuting, we have the rack. Of course, the rack is where the battery is stored. We've got a charging port here, so you can charge the battery on the bike if you wish, or you can take the key, which is on the other side here. You put the key in and you can slide out the battery and charge it inside. The Shimano Steps system, for some reason, uses a dongle for the battery, so when you're charging it on the bike, the charger you have, you just plug it right into here. When you take the battery off of the bike, then the charging port is much larger, and so you need a little dongle that comes with it to charge it off the bike. So just don't lose that dongle. Keep it somewhere safe with the charger, or find a way to attach it to the charger so that you're not losing that. This is a 480 watt-hour battery. It's actually, for the amount of power that's in there, relatively small and lightweight. It's not terribly obtrusive, and in fact, if you were to put pannier bags on here, which you can, this is a standard rail size, you would actually not even notice the battery in there. It is a standard from Shimano, so should you need replacement batteries, you're able to get that. It's not something specific to iZip. You're not reliant on them for the battery, but you can get that from Shimano. With the 480 watt-hour, that's that was a common size up until very recently. Now we're starting to see a lot more bikes with 500 watt-hour, but you still get a tremendous range. And again, that's because this bike is very efficient with the narrow tires, the rigid fork. Also, the Shimano Steps mid-drive is quite efficient as well. So you can see, rather than a motor maybe in the rear hub like you would sometimes find on a bike in this price range, you actually get a real mid-drive, and a good quality one from Shimano. The mid-drive gives you a number of advantages. It helps to get the weight low and center, helps make the bike a little bit more balanced. It's a more natural experience. That's one of the things that really struck me with riding this bike, is it really feels very natural. It's very smooth. It's not abrupt. You don't feel the power overwhelming you at any time. So if you're new to e-bikes and you're a little bit concerned, that it's not going to be like riding a regular bike, this is a good bike to consider, because with the Shimano Step system, it really is very smooth. It has a torque sensor, so it knows how hard you're pedaling and matches that power in proportion to what you're pedaling. So you're never going to get too much or too little power. The other advantage with a mid-drive is you are leveraging your gearing on the back. So because the motor is driving the chain, and we've got this great, very attractive looking full-length chain guard here to protect you. Again, it's a great commuting bike because it's going to keep you clean with those fenders and with the chain guard. But because it's driving the chain, when you change gears back here, that's actually having an impact on the motor. So that's going to make it easier for you to climb hills. And we do have 9 speeds back here. This is the Shimano Acera. It's more of an entry-level group set, but in my test ride I didn't have any problems with it. We do have a visual indicator up here, which is handy to tell you the gear that you're in. And the shifting is quite easy. You've got trigger shifters. You've got this one here to move you to a lower gear for climbing hills. And with your index finger, you can shift up here to move it up for faster speeds. We also have Shimano hydraulic disc brakes, which is great. I love to see that on an e-bike. That means that you're not relying on the force of your hands to stop the bike like you might with the mechanical disc brakes. And it also means it's not really going to need any adjustments. And so we do have the rotors down here, and you can see we do have a quick release on the front fork. And we also have a quick release on the rear here as well. We do have pannier blockers on the rack, and also a little hook here for a bungee cord. Bungee cord isn't included, but that's something you could easily add. And speaking of things that are included, we do have a kickstand, and I love to see when they use the a standard chainstay format here, where it's actually bolted into the chainstay. So as long as those bolts stay tight, which they usually will, this is a very sturdy kickstand. It's not going to get in the way of the pedals. If you're moving the bike and the pedals rotate, it's not going to hit the kickstand, so that's a nice location for it. You can see we have some of the wiring running through the frame here. You can see it enters the frame up here, a couple different spots, and out the back here. So it's quite a nice looking bike, and they've routed things quite cleverly through the frame. These are very good, comfortable pedals. For this type of bike, you're not going to want pins on there where you cut your shins, but if you ride a lot in the rain, you may find these a little bit slippery, so that's an easy thing to change. And keep in mind, changing the touch points of the bike is really easy, so if you wanted to change the pedals, that's straightforward. The bars here, these grips are actually quite comfortable, but you could change those if you wanted to. I'm not sure why you would. They're actually quite comfortable. The only downside is that if you wanted to put a mirror in the bar end here, you'd actually have to cut the grip out because there isn't a bar end that you can remove there. The riding position on this bike is really comfortable. You can see these are really swept back bars, and so you end up having this really upright riding position. Very comfortable, great for being aware of the traffic around you. And going back to these touch points, we do have a fairly wide saddle with a bit of a lip at the back here to kind of keep you from sliding off the back. And I actually found it quite comfortable. I was surprised. There's a little bit of padding, but maybe not as much as you would like to see. But it certainly has a nice width. And again, a saddle is an easy thing to change. I did change the seat post here to a suspension seat post. It doesn't come with one, but you know, they're under $50, and that really helps to smooth out the ride as well. It's not necessary, but it's a nice little upgrade that you can do if you wish. We do have an adjustable angle on the stem here as well, so you can really dial this in to find the ride that's most comfortable for you. We do have a reflector on the front and on the rear, but we don't have lighting built in. You can get lights for it, and I believe the Shimano Steps display here has a spot where you could wire in the lighting if you wanted to do that. Otherwise, you could throw some USB rechargeable lights on there as well, and that would work out well for you. So all in all, it's you know, a great value for the price. It's very comfortable, very upright riding position. It's not ideal for trail riding if you're on rough trails with a lot of bumps, or if you're riding on a lot of broken pavement because of the rigid fork, but for commuting, for paved paths, for hard packed gravel trails, it's a great bike, a really great value. A lot of fun to ride, very quiet, very smooth. So I'll take you on a ride test, but if I've missed explaining anything in the video, or if you have any questions, you can head on over to our website at CitrusCyles.ca. Okay, so I realized I did forget something. I forgot to show you the display system for the Shimano Steps, so I'll run you through that. to turn the bike on and off. And you see I've got some panniers on here. There's a power button on the battery, so that also shows you your level of the battery charge. So we've got 4 out of 5 bars right now. And once you turn that on, the display is going to come on, and you can see here we've got a battery indicator up here, your current speed, the current level of assistance, the time, and a trip computer down here that varies depending on what page you're looking at. So the top button here, when I press that, rotates through the trip computer on the bottom, so you can see my average speed, maximum speed, the distance, the trip distance that is, the odometers, the total distance on the bike, and very useful information, the range. And that range adjusts depending on the level of assistance you're in. So on high I've got 43 kilometers left, on normal I've got 53, and on eco I've got 59. And that I'm changing the assistance level with the plus and minus here. There are 3 levels of assistance, so you can see them in high, you've got normal, eco, and I guess you could say off is another assistance level. And again, pressing the top button is going to cycle through the rest of the information. This is a handy screen here that's going to show you for each of the levels what the range is. And we've also got a trip time and back to their average speed. That information can all be reset by pressing and holding the black button on the top here. That's going to, turn the lights on, but the lights aren't wired in. You actually have to press and hold the plus and minus button together. That's going to give you into the menu setting here. It's actually a very easy to use menu system. So if I want to clear any of the settings, I can just go to clear and press the black button, and I can reset, say, the distance. I can adjust my clock, I can change the backlight settings, and the first thing you'll probably want to do if you get this bike is turn the beep off, because otherwise, if that is on, every time you press buttons, it's going to beep, and that gets really annoying. So let me turn that off. It's the first thing I do on a Shimano Steps bike. You can change the units of measurement and the language as well, and there's a bunch of other options in there, and we'll just exit that. So that's the display system to turn the bike off. It will time itself out if you accidentally leave it on, but of course you can just press the power button on the battery here and that will turn it off. We do have an adjustable angle here, and the display is removable, so I can bring this in with me. It's not operable while it's removed. There's no buttons on it, so unlike the Bosch system where you can still see your trip information, it does need to be on the bike in order to operate. But it's handy that you can remove it for safety. Nobody's going to scratch or damage your display while you have it with you. Okay, well, unless I think of anything else while I ride away, I think that's the end of this part of the video, and next we'll go to the ride test. Okay, so I'm going to start out on normal, and then as I hit some hills, turn it up to high. So I've hit that 30-32 kilometer an hour mark very quickly with the bike, so there's lots of power for starting out. I did add a suspension seat post just for fun to the bike for the ride test. It's not an expensive upgrade, and it does definitely help, although if you go over a lot of bumps or have really rough roads, this may not be the best bike for you because it does have a rigid fork and narrow tires. But if you're mostly on pavement, then it's very efficient because of these narrow tires and the rigid fork. It really helped me to get up to speed fairly quickly. I'm going to pop it up into high here just in case the light turns green. It's a short light. It's nice having that ability to get more power when you need it. Back down to normal. I also like the display here. You can actually see quite a bit of information on it at once, including your speed and the battery level, the trip time. Pressing the top black button here cycles through your trip computer down at the bottom here. nice having that range, and you can actually keep that on the display if you want and still see the time, your average speed, and the assistance level. So there's a lot of information on that little display. It is a nice and compact display, so it's not really obvious that it's an e-bike except for the battery on the rack, which if you had a couple pannier bags on, nobody would notice. I'm missing my mirror. I usually ride with a mirror, so it's definitely something I would add to this bike. But riding in traffic, it's nice because it's a very upright position, so it's really easy to see around you and have a lot of situational awareness. It's actually quite a fast bike, even on the normal mode here. I'm able to maintain a good speed without having to work too hard at it. Again, that's probably a combination of the narrower tires, the rigid fork, just designed as a fast bike. Not having any problems maneuvering around potholes or other obstacles in the road here. Hitting a hill, so I'm going to move that up to high. Now this is the Shimano Steps. I have to be a little bit more careful with my gear shifting than I am on my mountain bike. I'm used to just shifting under load, and although you can do that, it's going to be kind of noisy and complain a bit. So you do want to make sure that you're backing off a little bit on the pedals when you're shifting. That'll help. Definitely help prolong the life of your drivetrain. It is nice having the visual indicator of the gears there. Even when I'm ease off on the pedaling, you can hear those shifts are a bit noisy. At least the upshifts are. Downshifts aren't too bad. Well, I am surprised at how comfortable the bike is, given that it's narrow tires and a rigid fork. I'm, really used to riding bikes that have a lot of suspension, lots of travel in the front fork, and wide tires with low air pressure to really smooth things out. And obviously I'm choosing a route that isn't full of potholes and broken pavement. And it looks like I'm going to need to make a detour today. My usual road is closed. It smells like a gas leak. So I'll continue on this way. It's one of the nice things about an e-bike is when you run into an unexpected situation or you're going to have to detour, it's not a big deal if it takes longer. You have to go more circuitous route. In fact, that's what a lot of our customers find when they get an e-bike, is they just really start exploring. They go different routes maybe. They're definitely not afraid of going down roads with hills like you might be on a regular bike. Oh, I think I'm still on high here. Yep, I am. Accounts for why I'm cruising along so fast here. But surprisingly, even on high, I still have 43 kilometers left, my range. So I'll drop that back down to normal, and you can see I've got 55. So not a huge difference, which I have to admit is a little tempting then to just ride on high all the time. I don't really need that extra 12 kilometers right now, but it is nice knowing exactly what your range is going to be and make those adjustments as you need to. I'm hoping that my camera is working well. I'm supposed to have a wind filter so you can hear me. It is quite windy, so I can't hear the motor at all. I just hear the wind in my ears. hit 60 going down that hill. Felt very confident on the bike, didn't feel it shaking. You know, that's something I really pay attention to with the step through, is a lot of times with a step through, if the frame isn't rigid enough, you're going to get some wobbling in the front, especially if you don't have enough weight forward in the front tire, and at a higher speeds you can start to see a bit of a speed wobble. And no problems at all, you know, hitting 60. Now I could pedal at 60. On this bike, the gearing with that 9 speeds, I'd say at about 45 is kind of where there's really no point in pedaling anymore, because you just don't have any effect. Your legs are tuning too quickly. And again, this kind of bike, you're probably not going to be exceeding speeds like that. If you are, well, then let's talk about some of the other bikes that have a wider gear ratio, even look at something with a roll-off. But for hill climbing, it was fine. I mean, that was a relatively steep hill. Managed to maintain my speed pretty quickly. This bike feels light riding it as well, and just very efficient. So yeah, hill climbing isn't a problem at all. Perhaps I sound a little bit surprised sometimes. I think this bike is surprising me more than I expected. For the price, you know, under $3,000, with a quality drive system with the Shimano Steps mid-drive. iZip and Rally have done a really good job of putting the bike together. Now that the wind's died down a bit and I'm climbing a steeper hill, I can definitely hear the motor now. It's a little bit of a low pitch whine. It doesn't bother me, I guess I'm used to it. But it's probably a little bit louder than some of the other e-bikes out there. I wasn't paying attention to my speed. I'll have to go back and watch the video, but thinking I was maybe 17, 18. That again surprises me, because the Shimano Steps doesn't have as much torque as the Bosch. I am used to riding the Bosch system with the CX, having a lot of torque for climbing hills. And I thought, you know, that this would be noticeably slower. But I think because it's so lightweight and so efficient compared to, say, you know, the full suspension mountain bikes that I'm used to riding, I really didn't notice it being any more work at all. And my speed was pretty comparable. So for climbing hills, you know, it's actually a really good bike. I haven't had to use my lowest gear yet. So don't anticipate any problems. You know, now that we're not climbing a hill or just a little bit of an incline, the motor's a lot quieter now. And again, it might be the wind noise making it hard for me to hear. Usually I'm not a big fan of the swept back bars like this. I feel like they don't give as much control. You know, I'm used to riding wide bar bikes. But again, you know, you're not going on challenging technical trails with this bike. That's not what it's for. For cruising around, for commuting, it's actually really comfortable. I don't mind this configuration. I thought I'd have a hard time with it, but it's really not bothering me. Even, you know, riding one hand if I need a signal or something like that, you know, that's sometimes a concern, these bars, and it's not an issue here. Just corners well. Haven't had any toe clips either. Like I haven't, sometimes in a step through, if the geometry isn't right, you'll find yourself hitting your toes on the front wheel, but it's not a problem either. There's that whine again from the drive. Definitely hear it climbing hills. There you go. But it's very responsive. You can hear as soon as I stop pedaling, you stop hearing the motor. And as soon as I start pedaling, you hear it right away. Also has a torque sensor, so when I pedal harder, it gives me more power. And when I pedal lightly, it gives me less power. So this is iZip's Path Plus. It's a Shimano Steps powered e-bike. For more information on it, including the detailed specs, pricing, or to try it yourself, head over to our website at CitrusCyles.ca. Okay, so I need to bring the bike back to the store, so I had to do a little bit of extra video for you, a couple hills, and I'll also get into some broken pavement. So I'm around 45 now, dropping, and definitely I can pedal. My cadence isn't too high. So not a bad gear range. Once I get over that, 46, 47 now, there's really no point pedaling. I can do multiple shifts, which is nice. I'm shifting 2 and 3 gears at a time, which is really not bad for, again, the component group tends to be more towards the entry level. This is Shimano Steps, I believe, but it's working quite well. You know, I'm maintaining about a 17, 18 kilometer an hour speed up this hill, and this is a relatively long hill. Not incredibly steep, but I am very impressed with the Shimano Steps here. It's not that much work on the high getting up this hill, so that's good to see. And I'll just check what my maximum speed was going down the hill there. 60 kilometers an hour. Had complete confidence in the bike, and in these brakes as well. They are the Shimano hydraulic disc brakes. Now they may be, I'll have to check on our website, got all the specs there. It might be that they're 160 millimeter rotors. I'm not sure if they're 160 or 180. For what you're going to be riding this bike and the conditions you're riding it, they seem to be very adequate. I haven't had any concerns about not being able to stop. I'll try to remember on a hill, but I'll check now again for speed wobble. Letting go of the bars here and pedaling with 31, 32. Bike's tracking just fine, no wobble at all. I think part of that is because I've got this double bar system. Really helps to make the frame very rigid. Okay, I've got a nice steep hill coming up here. Test out the brakes. Hopefully the GPS is working correctly on the camera. I have been having some problems with it, so I apologize if the readings are inaccurate, but it's quite a steep hill. It exceeds 20%. I'm not sure exactly what the grade is. Maybe you'll see in the video there. I'm going to hit close to 50. And no problems coming to a stop. Now, taking curbs without the front suspension, it's a little bit bumpier obviously than one with, but you know, these are fairly large tires, and so that helps make it over the curb without too many difficulties. Now there's a couple things I would add to the bike. It doesn't come with lights, so I want to add that. There's no bell, I do like having a bell if I am somewhere where there'll be pedestrians, or I need to, you know, a tunnel like this, a light to let people know I'm coming out the other side. Those are very easy things to add, of course. I should mention I do like the shifting here. We've got shifting to an easier gear with the thumb here, shifting down, and with your index finger on the other side of the bars is shifting up to a harder gear for hills. It's quite nice. Grips are very comfortable, quite happy with them. I don't think they're locking. No, I can twist them. Some people prefer that on a bike like this. Again, you're not mountain biking, so you don't have to worry about, you know, bearing down on the grips and then them twisting. But of course, that's easy to change. And I always, you know, mention when you're trying a bike, don't worry about the saddle. That's easy enough to change. The pedals, those can be quickly changed, and the grips are also easy to change. But they have chosen good grips. Don't have a problem with the saddle, actually. By the looks of it, I thought it was going to be a bit hard. There's a bit of a rise at the back that I thought I wouldn't like, but it's quite comfortable. I think that they, you know, put that rise on the back because with an e-bike you are going to be riding at higher speeds. Okay, so here's some really rough, broken pavement, and you know, when I ride this with a full suspension bike, maybe the D-Lite or the Homage from Reese & Mueller with the control technology, I don't slow down. I, you know, keep riding, hit 30 along here, no problem. On a bike like this, I'm definitely feeling it in my arms. It's definitely, you know, a little rougher, and I'm going slower. You know, I'm going to keep it under 20 likely, so that I don't rattle out of control. If you just have a few minutes of this on your commute, then I wouldn't worry about it. It's a great bike for that. If you're riding this all the time, or a lot of gravel trails, that sort of thing, you know, then you might want to consider a bike with some wider tires, balloon tires perhaps, and maybe a suspension fork. But for the occasional bumps or occasional broken pavement like this, some gravel, it's really not that bad. And again, once you get back on something like this, then it's a great bike because it's really fast. It's really easy to get up to that top speed before the assistance comes out, stops working. And you know, by law here in Canada, e-bikes do need to stop assisting you at 32. You just experiment here, see how, yeah, the transition is very smooth. So here I am at 31, get up to 32. You actually don't even notice it cutting out. In fact, this is a very subtle riding e-bike. Sometimes, especially with a rear hub motor, maybe a 500 watt motor, you get a lot of power. You get almost that jumpiness from right when you turn the cranks. With this bike, you're definitely getting power. I mean, I've had no problems climbing any hills, getting up to speed very quickly, but it's really subtle. I don't notice it per se. I mean, obviously I know that it's there, but it's not really pronounced like it sometimes is on, especially on a rear hub. So it's if you're looking for something that's really smooth, really comfortable, you know, it's going to be reliable. You know, that's a nice thing about Shimano. They've got a good name behind them, a good support network. You get really good range with this. You know, I've been riding on high most of the ride here, and if I look at my range calculator here, I've still got 48 kilometers left. So that's pretty impressive. And this is a neat little feature here. I can actually see for each level what my range is. If I go up to Eco, I'm going to get 61. So here, you might be able to hear it cutting out and in. Slow down a little bit. There. And now it cuts out. it's really only the sound that gives you an idea that the assistance is cut out, because otherwise it's really smooth. So that's a really nice feature. Alright, so I think that's the end, unless I decide to take it for one more ride somewhere, but getting back to the store here. So any questions you have about this or any of the e-bikes that we carry, want to try it out yourself, head over to our website at CitrusCyles.ca.